Today's episode is sponsored by my friends over at Lingoda. They are a language school based in Berlin that focuses on teaching with immersion. They use online classrooms, so that means per video chat you can talk to a teacher and other people and learn German by speaking. Another great thing about Lingoda is that they provide you with CFR certificates if you want that. So if you reach the next level within the A1, A2, B1, B2 system, then you can get a certificate from them that certifies that you have reached that level. Now, as always, they have provided me with a voucher code that you can use as a discount if you go sign up with them. That's this. Make sure you use that if you want to go check them out. There's a link in the description. If you do end up signing up, use the voucher, you'll get a discount. You're welcome.
Hallo Leute, ich bin Victor, ich bin aus Venezuela und ihr seht Deutsch für euch mit der besten und hübschesten Deutschlehrerin bei YouTube, Katja. Los geht's!
I made a poll in my community tab the other day. This is what it was. Oh, by the way, before we get to the topic, if you're seeing this and wondering how you can participate when I do polls like this, you should be sure to turn on notifications. You can do that by clicking on the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. When you do that, you will be notified not only when I upload videos, but also when I publish other posts. Sometimes I publish previews for my next video, like pictures, or sometimes I share screenshots when I make a funny face, and sometimes I make polls to involve you in the process of making a video. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss something like that, click on the bell icon. Anyway, the question I asked in that poll was how many vowel sounds you thought there are in German. I gave 5 options: 5, 8, 11, 12, and 20. And these were the results. The majority of you agreed that there are 8 vowel sounds in German. It's not hard to see how you would arrive at that conclusion. Now, I have my reasons for the 5 options that I gave. I will get to that later on. For now, I want to get into the 5 comments that I also got on this post explaining the choice that they made. Because, as we will see, fascinatingly enough, when you combine all of these answers, you almost arrive exactly at the correct one. First off, we have Melesio Torres. He says there are 5 vowels. Plain and simple. Very straightforward. Right. However, we are talking about vowel sounds here, not the vowels as letters. So any sound that's not a consonant, basically. Any open sound, regardless of which letters they are produced from. So 5 is not our answer. Not enough. Aha, says Jasmine. And the majority of everyone who participated in the poll, what about the umlaute? I think there's 8 sounds. And you're totally right. The umlaute are vowel sounds. So they go in and we end up at 8 as our new number. Now, Mariana either had the same thought as Jasmine and just asked additionally for the diphthongs, or she added the diphthongs in and then asked if that was correct to do. Either way, she arrived at 8 too and asked, do diphthongs count? Now, German has 5 diphthongs. It's e, I, ai, au, au, eu, oi, and eu, oi. Those are 5 differently spelled diphthongs, but in effect, when we look at the sounds, and that's what we're looking at here, we only have 3 sounds: I, au, and oi. So with that in mind, including the diphthongs and the umlaute, we get to 11. And speaking of 11, this is interesting. 1992, J. David didn't have the reason that I expected he would have for picking 11 sounds, but he very clearly listed the 11 ones that he was thinking about. So if we take the sounds that they found additionally to the ones that we already know, we end up with 3 ones that weren't mentioned yet, which brings our total up to 14. Not an option that I gave, so let's move on. Lajos H90 said 12, and they backed it up with a very clear list that included long vowels and short vowels. Now, they limited themselves to short and long versions of the 5 vowels and a long and short version of the U. No diphthongs, though. And they said they're glad that I won't count the long e. Well, I'll have to disappoint you there. Because 12 is not the right number either. But let's do another round of math. If we include all of the new sounds that Lajos introduced in their list, then we end up at a total of 19. Now, for some reason, nobody mentioned the short Ö. Poor, short Ö. But it does exist. And if we include it, then we end up at 20, the last option I gave in the poll. And that is actually the correct answer. Mein lieber Herr Gesangsverein. 20 vowels, 20 Vokale. Whew! Now, to start, of course, we have the 5 actual vowels, a, e, I, o, u. And they can all be short and long. Now, there are some easily memorable signs and rules for when a vowel needs to be long or short. If it is followed by a doubled up consonant, then it's always short. Examples for this would be Wall, Presse, Sinn, Sonne, and Kolon. By the way, careful with the sharp S here. I made a full video on that that you can get to right now if you click on here. It's really not very long. I think it's like something around a minute, but I explain it in detail there. Basically, when a vowel is followed by a sharp S, that vowel always has to be long. So this word is not pronounced Soße, but it is pronounced Soße. Generally, things get a bit more tricky when talking about long vowels because they're not always clearly indicated, but generally you can say that if you have a vowel that is not followed by a double consonant, it's very, 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 very likely that it'll be long. The reason I put it that way is because that I'm not confident that that's actually a rule, but I cannot think of any examples that, are not true to that rule or tendency or whatever it is. So for now, just assume that when you see a vowel followed by a single consonant and not anything that, specifically lengthens it either, it's still gonna be a long vowel. So that would mean that all vowels that are not followed by a double consonant are automatically long. However, there are also some ways to very clearly mark that a vowel sound has to be long. So long vowels can be marked by being followed by an H, which happens in such words as Wahl, or Drehung, or Sohle, or Kuhle. E, specifically, is never followed by just an H. To elongate an E, we add an E behind it. So an E and an E right next to each other are not a diphthong, they are just a long E sound. So Sieg, Fliegen. And then finally, this is very rare, but it does happen, you double up the vowel. This would be for words like Beeren, berries, or Zoo. It doesn't happen very often, but you should be aware that it's a thing. This is, of course, how we end up with the 3 words Wall, Wahl, and Wahl. The latter 2 sound exactly the same, but they're spelled differently, one without any elongating measures, just W-A-L-L, and the other with an elongating H. They sound the same, but they mean different things and they're spelled differently. Oof. That means we land at 5 long vowels and 5 short vowels. That gives us 10 vowel sounds. Moving on. The exact same principle works for the umlaute. There's a short Ö, like in Hölle, and there's a long Ö, like in Höhle or Möwe. There's a short Ü, like in Müller, and there's a long Ü, like in Mühle or Schwül. Ä is a bit special because its short version is not counted as a separate sound from the short E because they sound exactly the same. It really doesn't make a difference in sound whether I say Bett, which is spelled with an E, a short E, or Feld, which is spelled with a short Ä, or spelled with an Ä, but it's a short Ä. So you're not going to hear a difference in sound. If I make a sentence out of it, I could say, Sie fällt aus dem Bett. If you want to be very specific, you could make a slight difference, but your tongue isn't really capable of making a distinct difference, so the short E and the short Ä are commonly counted as the same sound. The long Ä, however, is a distinct sound. There is a clear difference between a long E, as in Beeren, and a long Ä, as in Bären. Even in a sentence, ich mag Beeren und Bären mag ich auch. That's actually true. Now, it's true that some Germans make this difference less distinct than others. So, like the example that Lajos pointed out where they said that Käse is not actually pronounced Käse, but rather Käse. That's true in some parts of Germany, but the way I say it is definitely more close to saying Käse, and that's the way that Hochdeutsch would have you pronounce it. But yes, there are regions in Germany where you would be more inclined to say Käse. Now, with these new umlaut sounds, we end up at 15. Not 16, because we're not counting the short E, so 15 in total now. Now, the diphthongs are diphthongs, they're not vowels, but the sounds that they produce are definitely not consonants, so they are counted as vowel sounds. Like I said before, we have 3 distinct sounds, even though we have 5 ways of spelling them, so here, finally, we have a case where there's more ways of spelling than there is ways of pronouncing. But anyway, we have the 3 sounds, au, I, and oi. And they only come in their long versions because how do you pronounce a short version of something that is actually 2 sounds? Alright, 18. And then lastly, there's the Schwa. The Schwa is a sound that exists in many languages, English being one of them, and German also. And in phonological terms, it is noted as an upside down lowercase e or e. And it is that sound that you encounter mostly in the middle of the word or at the end of words, and it sounds kind of like a swallowed e sound. German does this all the time, mostly at the end of words, in two ways. There is the Schwa that most often comes out of a word final e, the sound, like in bitte, Lehre, Sprache, etc. You don't say Sprache, you say Sprache, Sprache. And then there's the other Schwa that most often comes out of a word final combination of the letters E and R, so E and R. And it sounds a bit more like an A than an So this would be for words like bitte, Lehrer, Sprecher. Bitte, Lehrer, Sprecher. As compared to bitte, Lehre, Sprache. Bitte, Lehrer, Sprecher. To tell them apart, they are commonly referred to simply as an E-Schwa for the former, so bitte is an E-Schwa, and the A-Schwa for the latter, so bitte, because that's the closest that you can get to an equivalent vowel sound. Bitte, bitte. Or as Lahaus called them, the Schwa and the Lehrer Schwa. I'd never heard those terms before, but I like them. They might help you remember them better. And there we go. That's 20 vowel sounds. Now for the poll, for those of you who care, I figured that if you didn't just say, oh, it's 5 because there's 5 letters, you would either count the umlaute, or you would count the diphthongs, or you would count both. Or maybe you would even know that there is a Schwa involved, if, of course, you didn't already know that it was 20 and pick that option for that reason. But turns out there are quite a few other ways and possibilities to combine different sounds you can come up with. Now, I made a table with all these 20 vowel sounds and examples and a link to how the sound is actually pronounced. And here is how you get access to that list. The list you are seeing right now are names of people who are supporting me on Patreon. Patreon is always linked in the description and also on the screen right now, and it is a website that you can use to support DFE financially. Now, I know that many of you do this without having any need for rewards, but since I really appreciate your help with this project, there are some rewards that you can get for this. For pledging $1, you get access to a folder with my charts and goodies like the list with these vowels. So, little extra things that help you in learning. For $5 and up, you get access to all of my grammar scripts. All of my scripts with additional examples, better formatting so you can review everything that I say in my videos, etc. So that's the central part. And when you pledge $7 and up, you get the extra added goodness of passive language learning. If you want to know what that is, go to my Patreon and find out. I wrote down a description there. And no matter what amount you pledge, you end up on this list of people who support me because I really appreciate that, and I think this is a lovely way of showing that. And with that, that's it for today. Your random word of the week is das Oberstübchen. Das Oberstübchen is a casual and kind of cutesy way of referring to your head or your mind, your thinky part. And it literally translates to your upper lounging, I guess. And of course, as always, you have the chen at the end, which makes it cute. It makes it a diminutive and it also makes it das, so neutral. Das Oberstübchen. Das war's. Bis nächste Woche. Tschüss!